You saw a fierce battle for P1 between Michael Broomhead and Andrew Hardman, with Broomhead finally coming out on top. This week, we turn our attention away from the rolling hills of Austria and instead focus on the twisting confines of one of Europe's most famous and infamous circuits, the Autodromo Internazionale di Enzo e Dino Ferrari, or as more commonly known, Imola. Will the Flying Huskies be able to tame this fearsome circuit, or the notoriously difficult nature of the track catch our drivers out? Stay tuned, because you'll see it all here live on the Global Sim Racing channel. Hi, I'm DJ Clark, and with me in the booth is Reese Gardner. Behind the scenes is our director, Zach Johnson, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Imola is a track that is often shadowed in dark memories, but is truly one of the most challenging and picturesque circuits in the world. For any of our viewers who are unfamiliar with its undulating layout, let's head over to our track guide to learn more.
Welcome to the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo e Dino Ferrari, but most race fans know this place as simply Imola. This circuit in the northern part of Italy has seen some of the highest highs and lowest lows in motorsport's history. The various tragedies that have marred the track left no choice but to alter it in the name of safety. While it originally featured mostly fast, sweeping corners, its modern 3-mile or 5-kilometer version is punctuated by tricky chicanes and incredibly technical turns. iRacing includes the Grand Prix layout and a moto version, which adds one more chicane to the front stretch. Tamburello is perhaps the most notorious of the corners for claiming the life of multi-time world champion Ayrton Senna when it was still a single breathtaking turn. Now the Triple Apexer not only offers potential passing opportunities, but catches out drivers quite frequently. While heavy braking zones are everywhere, because few places allow the cars to get up to speed, overtaking is generally seen as an exercise in frustration. As if to almost counteract this quality, the track itself is situated in a gorgeous public park and sends the drivers through the beautifully calming Italian countryside. It also includes a fair bit of elevation change, in which the track is split between the higher up back half and the lower first portion. It's no wonder that this place still proves popular with drivers and fans in spite of its difficulties in history. The Tifosi keep returning each and every time the sound of engines roar among the trees, and who can blame them?
Well, Reese, how do you think these Formula 3 machines are going to handle this historic layout?
It's going to be difficult, man. These Dallara Formula 3 cars, very stiff indeed by virtue of being the open wheelers that they are. This track is very twisty. It's got very many sharp turns through these chicanes peppered around the layout, and the curbs, I think, are going to be a big issue. The exit curbs of Tosa, Piratella, and Variante Alta, the chicane at the top of the circuit, around about the top left from what you can see on screen, those are the only curbs that can really be used by the cars. All the other curbs are very prominent and high up above the track, and you've got speed bumps on the apexes of a lot of these corners, so the drivers are going to have to avoid them.
Well, we'll have to see just how successful they are at doing so. But before we dive in, we'd like to tell you about the sponsors of today's race. First off, Norsled. Norsled is a non-profit animal welfare organization dedicated to rescuing, rehabilitating, and finding homes for unwanted, abandoned, and abused husky dogs. Today, every Flying Husky Racing track day or car event benefits Norsled with a portion of proceeds donated to them. Even if you can't adopt, you can still help and ensure care for these amazing animals through your support. Save a husky. For more information, contact Todd Curtis through email at todd@flyinghusky.racing. We are also sponsored by Flying Husky Racing. It's a car club based in the Pacific Northwest that delivers premium track days and car events for automotive enthusiasts. FHR is dedicated to safety, development, and building community among members and participants. Find out more on the web at flyinghusky.racing. Flying Husky Racing. Track days are the best days. Well, now, Reese, why don't you run us through the race details for today's event here at Imola?
Indeed, we've got a 25-minute race coming up for you. There's 15 minutes of open qualifying that we're in at the moment. The drivers can't do anything to the setup of the cars, apart from probably adjusting the brake bias on their way around the lap. They've also got a fast repair available, so if they end up coming a cropper of those speed bumps on the insides of the curbs, then they can very easily get back out there. It's round 2 of 11 as well, so it's a long championship. We're only just at the beginning, but right now it's Michael Broomhead who is on the top of the championship standings by virtue of his win at the Red Bull Ring.
Indeed, and as we watch here in qualifying, it's Michael Broomhead again in the lead. Nick Horvath behind him. This is obviously the qualifying that is going on right now. Andrew Hardman sitting back in third with Harlan Goldborn in fourth. Watching currently on your screens here, this is Nicholas Colander with Michael Broomhead stalking behind him. Now, despite the twisty layout of Imola, that long front straightaway can offer a little bit of a draft and certainly help out some drivers if they need it.
Absolutely. This particular layout of the track dates from when it was renovated in 2008. Imola used to be a lot twistier, especially after the modifications made to the track in 1995 after the tragic deaths of Ayrton Senna and Roland Ratzenberger at the 1994 San Marino Grand Prix. But yes, in 2008, the Variante Bassa chicane was removed on the layout for cars anyway, which has returned that front stretch at Imola to the very long blast that it once was. If you can get within about a second of the car in front, you'll be able to get a nice slipstream from them and try to make a move into the Tamburello chicane.
Indeed, and now as we ride on board with Broomhead here, you can see him coming out of that Variante Alta chicane, working his way down the hill. Looks like he's easing off a little bit. I think he's trying to give himself a little bit of a gap to Colander in front of him to set up for a good flying lap.
Yeah, indeed. Of course, these cars being open wheelers, they are affected by dirty air a little bit with those aerodynamic devices on the front. It would be nice if there was a car right in front of him right now. He'd be able to get a little bit more speed down the straight, but obviously he's a bit more comfortable having the maximum amount of front grip available to him as he attacks the braking zone for Tamburello. And those are the speed bumps that I was talking about before. You've got to be very careful over these curbs, and a flat exit curb on the exit of Tamburello as well that I forgot to mention. They can use that if they need to, but Broomhead is keeping it nice and tight here through Villeneuve.
Yeah, and that's a big key around this track. You want to minimize how much that car is bouncing around anytime the tires are in the air. That really prevents the grip getting put down onto the actual surface. Coming up here towards Piratella, this is always a tricky zone to try to get right. There you got to see, you just got to throw the car in there. Oh, it was a little wide there. I think that may even count as an off track for Michael.
Yeah, absolutely. The off-tracks here at Imola can really bite, especially there on the exit of that Zacco Minerali that he just went through. If you go over a bit too far onto that dark green AstroTurf, that will trigger the iRacing off-track. There's no such trouble through the Variante Alta. You can use those big curbs very much in these cars, but again, Broomhead ran a bit wide over the AstroTurf, so that's another good old off-track 1X for him. Let's see if he can get another lap in with just about a minute remaining in the qualifying session. They should be able to finish their laps if they cross the line before the timer runs out.
Well, it looks like Broomhead is going to be able to do that, and he's going to need to do it because Nick Horvath was able to pip him to pole by about 0.05 of a second there. And look at that, Andrew Hardman only about 0.07 behind, so less than 1/10 of a second separating our top three. It is very close at the top here.
Absolutely is. Nick Horvath was the pace setter in practice. He set a 1 minute 36.383, and Andrew Hardman was just behind him by about 1/10. Michael Broomhead's fastest time in practice was a further 0.5 behind that. So Broomhead has found a bit of pace here in the qualifying session, but not quite enough to get provisional pole for now. Riding on board, coming down into the final turns at Rivazzi with Andrew Hardman, and that is Hans Salnave going off at the turn into the gravel trap. That's ruined his run onto the straight and also invalidated that lap. Let's see what Hardman can do here across the line. 37.18 is his quickest time at the moment. A 37.025, that is pole.
That is pole, and I think he was able to cross the line in just enough time, so he may have a banker here that he can get in as well as he makes his way around. Let's jump over to Michael Broomhead. He is just making his way out of the Variante Alta right now. Now, this will be his final lap. Let's see if he's got anything to do here. The Canadian, he's just really got 2 more corners to go. Ravazza 1 and Ravazza 2, but both very tricky.
Indeed, you got to avoid the curbs once again through here. Just keep it nice and tidy and don't run over that green AstroTurf. You don't get an off track at that point of the circuit, but it's very slippery, can easily unsettle the car. Across the line, Michael Broomhead, championship leader, comes, and it's a 1 minute 36.7. First driver into the 36s in qualifying, and that is pole position for now at least.
Yeah, he'll hold that for now. Looks like the next driver to cross the line is going to be James Doherty, who's coming through Ravazza right now. Doherty currently back in 6th place with a 39.9, so that's not going to be the best time for him. Let's see if he's able to improve on it. Comes down that undulating straightaway. He is able to improve to a 39.1, although it doesn't look like that's going to move him up the order that much. Next up, though, Nick Horvath in P2. He is only a couple of tenths off of Broomhead. Let's see if he's got anything.
Let's see, indeed. Nick Horvath coming down that straight. No, it looks like Nick Horvath is actually in the garage. That's Andrew Hardman we're looking at, and it's a 36.695. He's just beaten Michael Broomhead by 100th.
Oh my goodness gracious, this is shaping up to one heck of a battle here, and thank you for that correction. Now we are watching here, that is coming across the line. I believe that's Salnave. Looks like Salnave's not going to be able to put in a good enough time there, and so that's actually going to wrap up qualifying here. Hardman on pole by the merest of margins. Broomhead behind him. Horvath, Goldborn, and Colander making out your top 10 or 5.
Indeed, and then you got James Doherty, Hans Salnave, and our series organizer Todd Curtis there in 8th place. He's not set a time in qualifying, so let's see how far up the order he can move. I'm interested to see what James Doherty can do, because Doherty was able to have a really good run at the Red Bull Ring, finishing 2nd behind Michael Broomhead, and that's not the place that he would like to be coming into this race.
No, not at all. But now we get ready for these drivers to grid up here. It is a standing start. We don't always see that here in a lot of these series, so that will certainly add things in. There, as we say, we'll officially run you through the starting grid. Broomhead on top with Horvath next to him. In row 2, it's Hardman and Goldborn. And then behind them, Colander, Doherty, Salnave, and Curtis.
Indeed, it's a great run there from Andrew Hardman to take that pole position from Michael Broomhead. But the big key here is going to be the launch off the line. Broomhead was not able to get the best start at the Red Bull Ring, and that's how James Doherty was able to lead the race for a period in round 1. As the revs rise here, we're going to get a start.
Here we go. The lights are out, and there they go. A great start for the 61 of James Doherty, already at the outside. Oh, look at a little bit of contact almost there in the back. It looks like right now, though, that Broomhead is going to be
second last.
Yeah, something happened to Broomhead. I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah, and he's turned around Todd Curtis in the Tamburello chicane as well. He did not get off to a great start, did the 0-0, and that basically means that Andrew Hardman is leading from Nick Horvath, but Horvath has taken the speeding policeman on the inside of the curb, and my goodness, he has spun around. He's going to go all the way to the back as there's an even bigger crash there involving Hans Salnave and Michael Broomhead. This is chaos.
This is absolute chaos. I think Broomhead and Salnave may have gotten into each other, and that pinballed them up forward. We'll come back in a little bit to check out that replay when we can. But up front, this is the number 11 of Andrew Hardman working his way through Agua Minerale for the first time.
Indeed, he's keeping it nice and clean there over the curbs. There's been another spinner. Harlan Goulburn has gone off at the Agua Minerale complex. There's been a lot of spinners here on lap 1, and I just went back and checked that incident for Michael Broomhead and Hans Salnave. Broomhead actually spun it out by himself through the Villeneuve chicane and ended up collecting Salnave on the run through. So it's been a pretty chaotic start here that has spaced out the drivers massively.
It really and truly has. There you see, I believe that is Broomhead coming through that corner.
Bad.
Right there. Yeah, that's a lot of damage to that car. Let's go back and check out the replay from the start. Let's see what happened here with Broomhead, because I think it was really his bad start that sort of led to all of these problems.
Indeed, we'll go to the replay now, see how this went down. Broomhead just did not get a good launch there at all, and a little bit of contact there as well with another car on the run down into the Tamburello chicane. And so now Broomhead has everyone ahead of him. He's trying his best to make up positions, but there he goes spinning around Todd Curtis. I think a little bit flustered there off the start.
Yeah, so that's the spin from Curtis, and then following here, this is the incident with Broomhead coming through Villeneuve, and you hit the nail on the head, Reese. He just absolutely lost it. Lost it there, hit into Salnave, and Salnave pinballed forward up into Horvath, and that caused some major rear wing damage. I can already report that Nick Horvath has been through the pits to get that faster pair.
Yeah, and so has Michael Broomhead. He's made his way out of the pits now, back out onto the circuit. Hans Salnave is still having some issues, though. He's just trying his best to make his way back to the pits here, but on the run up to Variante Alta, missing that front wing. He's got the rear suspension hooked into the back of the car, and he's going to have a lot of trouble getting that thing back to the pits. Fortunately, he still has a fast repair in hand, so he should be able to get back out there.
Certainly should. Focusing back in there on our leader, that is Andrew Hardman. He's been able to pull out a gap of about 3.5 seconds to his closest rival of Nicholas Colander, and behind him James Doherty about 2 seconds back from him, trying to claw in that gap. There you see Hardman setting the fastest lap of the race there with a 39.3. These drivers really starting to separate out here.
Yeah, indeed, and we're about 5 minutes into the race now. We'll get to a fifth race time pretty soon, so there's still plenty of opportunity for the drivers to make up these gaps, but as we focus on the 9.73 of Nicholas Colander, he's starting to try to chase down Andrew Hardman. He's not been able to set the best lap time there on lap 2, about a second off Hardman at the moment, but he's going to have to start looking over his shoulder pretty soon, because you see behind him there James Doherty, second place finisher at the Red Bull Ring, and already looking for another podium here at Imola.
Is indeed Doherty starting to put a little bit of pressure on. He was slower on that last lap than Colander, but Imola is such a rhythmic track that I wouldn't be surprised if it just takes him a minute to get into the grip of everything. That 61 climbing the hill up towards the Variante Alta right there. You can see Colander ahead of him. That gap holding at about 2.5 seconds. This is the closest gap we have on track at the moment.
And Colander made a mistake through Variante Alta. He just got a bit crossed up over the curb and had to really slow down at the second apex. So that's given a little bit more of a look in here for James Doherty. And I saw a slight little lock-up for Colander as well coming into Ravazza. So struggling, I think, a bit with consistency there. Let's see if this battle ends up going anywhere, because James Doherty is still setting some really good lap times. It's a 41.19 for Colander, a 40.5 for Doherty, so gradually making up the gap.
Yeah, that is a green time there for Doherty, and that's certainly going to help him pulling that gap down into just over a second and a half here as they work their way around, losing a little bit of time on the exit of Tamburello, but I think Doherty definitely has some good pace here if he wants to try to keep pushing.
Yeah, indeed. But pushing is very difficult here at Imola. You've got to keep up a nice rhythm throughout every part of the circuit, because aside from the front stretch, the corners come thick and fast around here, and as I mentioned, the curbs, they are a big problem, so the drivers are going to struggle, I think, a bit to find some kind of pace, as Andrew Hardman was just making his way past Hans Salnave, who's back out with a fresh car now, but a little bit of a trip in the grass for Andrew Hardman coming into the Acqua Minerale complex. He's going to have to be careful about that.
Yeah, he certainly will. Just that little bit going off into the grass can really come back to bite you around this circuit as we continue to watch the leader there coming down into Ravazza 1 and 2. Mentioned this before, it's a very deceptively tricky corner to try to get right, but it looks like he's handling pretty well.
Yeah, does look like it indeed, and still the pace setter at the moment is Andrew Hardman, setting times in the 1 minute 38 across the line. That is going to be 1 minute 39.8. Of course, making his way past Hans Salnave was a bit of a factor in that, but he's keeping it nice and clean through Tamburello, just trying to minimize it. Imola is a track where you got to drive at about 8 or 9 tenths a lot of the time, especially on iRacing with this version of the track with its very brutal inner corner curbs, as it looks like that is Nicholas Colander making his way past Hans Salnave. Let's see how much of a factor Salnave is for James Doherty here.
Well, it looks like he's going to catch him up here, coming right before Tosa there. Ooh, Salnave off, has to avoid, does Doherty. I think he may have had to lift a little bit there. Ooh, bit of a surprising number to come across the board. That's Nick Horvath putting in the fastest lap of the race.
Indeed, Nick Horvath, well, he didn't quite get off to the best start, did he? Started in third, now currently running down in sixth place, and the gap ahead to Todd Curtis, well, it's about a couple of corners, roughly a Villeneuve chicane's worth of distance, so there might be a pass happening there soon.
We certainly could be seeing it if he's able to close up that fast.
Absolutely, and Mr. Doherty made his way nicely through Variante Alta as well as he continues to chase down Nicholas Colander. The gap is quite stable between the two of them, but we focus at the moment coming down on Todd Curtis and Nick Horvath. That gap is really closing now. Curtis, I don't know if he's having a couple of issues there from his first lap contact with Michael Broomhead, but getting a little crossed up again through Variante Alta, and looks like he might be letting him by here. Not too sure. He's keeping his foot in.
Ooh, a little bit of an aggressive move there for Todd Curtis, cutting across Nick Horvath. I think Horvath's going to have his blood up a little bit, and a little bit of a check up there through the middle of Ravazza. But now here comes that big draft. Curtis trying to move this way and that, breaking it the best he can, but I think Horvath is on a hot streak here.
Yeah, certainly. He's right in the draft now. He could get alongside coming into Tamburello. Look at how much the gap is closing up there through the first turn here at Imola. Bit of a defensive line from Todd Curtis coming into the corner. Trying around the outside almost there was Nick Horvath, but no dice. He's going to have to wait at least until Tosa to try and make a move, because Villeneuve isn't exactly an overtaking opportunity.
No, it's not. Not exactly heavy enough on the brakes, but let's see if Horvath has the patience. Ooh, runs a little bit wide as Broomhead regains that fastest lap of the race there, it looks like. Ooh, not a good line coming out of Tosa. I would have thought so, but carries a lot of momentum there, does Nick Horvath, as they make the way up the hill towards Piratella. Tries to take a look to the inside. Curtis says no, but oh, there he comes, taking the long line.
Ah, that's excellent stuff there. And they're going to go side by side into, Ackerman O'Reilly clipping the front wing, and Curtis catches the grass. Off he goes into the runoff area. That is the position for Nick Horvath. That was pretty hard racing.
It was indeed, and that's going to move Horvath forward. But let's take a jump up to that battle for P2. Looks like it was starting to close in a little bit.
Yeah, but now it is not. Looks like Doherty has lost quite a bit of time there to Nicholas Colander. I'm going to check the lap times. It looks to me like last lap, James Doherty was 0.6 faster than Mr. Colander, but seems that there's been a couple of mistakes along the way somewhere, maybe on the previous lap to that, so that battle has died down a little bit for now. But Nicholas Colander, he's not quite maximising the corner exits, so that's one place where Doherty can gain an advantage.
Most certainly. We'll have to see if he's going to be able to keep it up there. Broomhead again setting the fastest lap of the race. So that first lap kerfluffle there, not taking away the outright speed from our pole sitter.
No, certainly not. Andrew Hardman is absolutely motoring along right now. 1 minute 38.8 again. He's on that previous lap, just keeping it nice and consistent, all on his lonesome out there up the front. And looking a bit further back at Michael Broomhead, he's trying his best here to try and regain that position, any kind of position that he can. He's coming up on Todd Curtis now, who, remember, just had that spin in his involvement with Nick Horvath. And Broomhead, I think the main thing that he's going to have to focus on this season is his starts, because if it weren't for that poor getaway off the line, he wouldn't be in this position right now.
No, he wouldn't. And remember, he had a bit of a bad start last week at Austria as well and had to come back from that. So that is certainly something that he's going to be working on.
Yes, indeed. But the gap between Broomhead and Curtis is closing and closing again. And it seems with the speed that Broomhead is carrying now, setting that 37.3 and really maximizing the braking zone. Also, Todd Curtis running wide in Ravazza. That's going to potentially allow Broomhead alongside. Onto the AstroTurf goes our series organizer, and that is Michael Broomhead through into 6th place.
It is indeed, but he's got a lot of room to make up, as Nick Horvath is about 12.5 seconds up the road if he wants to try to make a move. Looks like Curtis is trying to take a little bit of a use of the draft here, but I don't think he's exactly going to be able to do it.
Oh no, and he's not even going to make the corner there at Tamburello. Got over the speed bumps and off into the gravel trap. That's very easy to do. I think in GT machinery, you can definitely take a bit more of the insides of those curbs, but if you mess up your braking point even slightly into Tamburello in a Formula 3 car, then those speed bumps will be waiting for you and they'll just kick you over into the gravel trap.
Yeah, indeed, they will. But now Todd Curtis continues along as we focus in here on the 5. That is, I believe, Horvath that we're watching.
Yes, indeed. It's Colander that we're watching at the moment. It's he's got a reasonable gap further back still to James Doherty. Doherty just has not been able to make up ground on him in these last few laps, and I think he's just settled into a little rhythm of his own. He doesn't want to drive the car too hard here. He knows the pitfalls of Imola that have been demonstrated by other drivers here today. He might as well just drive as he is and consolidate that podium. I think particularly with Broomhead as far down as he is, by virtue of finishing second at the Red Bull Ring, James Doherty, if he finishes third here, will still be able to pick up some really good points and maybe even pit Broomhead for the championship lead.
He very well may be able to, and he is going to be thinking about trying to do that right now. Just gotta keep focused up the road and make sure he minimizes any mistakes that he could make, as we've seen the mistakes being what really come out to bite people here at Imola.
Yeah, indeed. You know, as I said, this track, it's got so many corners that can really mess you up around here, particularly in these open wheelers with incredibly stiff suspension. But Horvath using all of the curb on the entry into the Variante Alta chicane and keeping a nice line out of there. I saw a little bit of oversteer from James Doherty on the exit, so maybe he's struggling a bit with rear grip. Unfortunately, won't be able to do much about that because this series does run a fixed setup. All drivers are running the exact same settings. The only thing you can really adjust in a fixed setup is the brake bias, and even then, if you're finding some fundamental issues with the car that impact your driving style, there's not much you can do other than just drive around it.
Yeah, exactly. And that really shows you just how drivers have to do. But having a little bit of a scuffle here, it looks like Broomhead is with the lap traffic of Hans Salnave.
Yeah, it looks like he is, and Salnave on the run down into Ravazza gets on the brakes early and lets Broomhead go into the braking zone. Broomhead keeps it on the track, so no harm, no foul between those two.
No, they'll be able to keep it going there, and Broomhead continues his march forward the best that he can. The gap ahead is about 14 seconds to Horvath, and with only about 9 minutes to go here, I gotta think that is just about too much to handle.
Yeah, I'd think so too. Broomhead just needs to keep it going forward at the moment and not catch those curbs too much, as he almost did just there. And he'll be able to at least salvage a 6th place finish and some more points and hopefully come back next round at Brands Hatch.
And that's what you have to do when you're looking at a long-term championship like this, is just focus on damage mitigation here. And I think, again, as we said for Broomhead, he clearly has the speed, but those starts just really coming back to bite him. He's really going to have to be practicing that in the weeks to come.
Yeah, absolutely. Fortunately for him, I suppose, the run into turn 1 at Brands Hatch is not as long as it is here at Imola, so he might not lose out too much if he gets off to a slow start again. And Paddock Hill Bend is wide open too, which may certainly result in some chaos if the drivers don't give each other enough space. But we'll think about that in a week's time. Here at Imola, still, it looks like reasonable gaps between most of the drivers. Andrew Hardman just has a nearly 20-second lead now over Nicholas Collender, which is pretty fantastic performance there from our pole sitter. Hardman was not able to quite get the result that he wanted at the Red Bull Ring. He was far behind the battling pair of Michael Broomhead and James Doherty. But now here at Imola, he has got prime position here to pick up maximum points.
He certainly does, but my eyes are focused a little bit back on that as James Doherty appears to be really closing the gap here to Nicholas Collender. It's down to about 1.3 seconds.
Yeah, it is. Well, James Doherty has either found some extra pace or Mr. Collender has made a couple of mistakes. Either way, it looks like James Doherty is just about in draft range, and if he stays where he is here at the moment, he might be able to get up to the rear bumper of Nicholas Collender on the run up to Tamburello.
He very well may indeed. He's got it down to about 9/10 of a second, hovering at about a second as it is, pushing as hard as he can. This is a very inspired drive from Doherty. He was about a second and a half faster on that last lap than Collender, just going as hard as he can here, trying to go. Let's see what that draft can do.
Yeah, let's see indeed down this front stretch. James Doherty staying in the draft of Collender, keeping it right in behind that number 973, but it looks like he's not able to take too much advantage of the draft down there. It seems that where Doherty is really closing up is the braking zones. He's maximizing that entry and able to really get onto the back of Collender, at least coming into the corners. But on the exit, it seems that Collender is taking just a little bit more of each curb and just maximizing the exit a little more.
Yeah, it really is. That gap holding now, coming down a little bit here and there. I think for Collender, he's going to just have to try to keep doing what he's doing. It seems like it's working, and it seems like he's pulling him in.
Ever so gradually, as Collender just about gets the off-track 1X on the exit of Piratella, that beautiful sweeping left-hander. The double apex of Aqua Minerale, very difficult. You're braking and turning at the same time to get it slowed down for that right-hander. And let's see the difference in lines here through Variante Alta. Lots of curb for Nicholas Colander, bit wide there for James Doherty, and the gap stays stable on the exit of that complex.
It does indeed, but now that it's growing a little bit on the exit, I wonder if that wide run caused Doherty just a couple of tenths. Holds it about 9 tenths here through Ravazza 1 and 2. He's really got to get the power down here. Looks like a little bit of a cleaner line, but that may have cost him a little bit of momentum. About 1 second between the two cars here as we tick down under 5 minutes to go. Really starting to turn in, and ooh, there you can see Colner's getting nervous. He's trying to break the draft.
Oh, weaving down the front straight. You love to see it. And now the draft is really working for James Doherty. Closes up massively in the braking zone. Takes a tiny bit more curb through Tamburello. Just straightens out the exit of the corner. Oh, he's not going to be able to make the move here, surely.
No, you can't get that done into Villeneuve. Backs off a little bit, maybe just hoping to square off that exit. Little bit of a wider run there from Colander. I don't think Doherty's going to be close enough back to make it pass. Misses the apex there at Tosa, but it takes him a little bit wider, maybe allows him to gain some speed. Broomhead again setting the fastest lap of the race. Doherty has the gap down to about a half a second.
Half a second indeed, and I understand why James Doherty is going for that wider line into Tosa. That hairpin actually tightens up a little bit as you come towards the exit, so if you run a little wide of it initially, you can bring it in nice and narrow on the exit and get a lovely run down the straight with a kink up to Piratella. But here we go through Variante Alta. No! That is not what James Doherty would want. Just a little bit too much curve. Too much throttle at the wrong time, and around he goes.
Around he goes, and
oh no.
Goose the throttle a little bit, and that's going to cause some serious damage to that 61 machine. Harlan Goldborn able to sneak on by into P3 while that is going on, and it looks like Nick Horvath may be able to pick up some pieces here and take away that P4.
Yes, maybe. We'll have to see what happens there. Nick Horvath easily by the now damaged James Doherty. And oh my goodness, I'm looking at the rear suspension of that car, and it is not looking good. I mean, Doherty, he was able to get it going after the spin nicely, but he just spun up the tires again and got a bit unstable trying to get back up to speed and went into the wall again. He's going to be ruining that mistake. Fortunately, he still has a spare car in hand, but with that, it looks like Michael Broomhead has made his way back past him.
Well, and that's going to be great news for Broomhead in that championship hunt, as you talked about, Reese, getting up into the top 5 and getting that fastest lap of the race. Now, the only unfortunate thing out of all of this is really any of our battles have pretty much completely stabilized.
Yeah, indeed. Well, we've only got a couple of minutes to go in the race, so there's not much time now for the drivers to make up any positions. But Broomhead continuing to fire away here and still holding the fastest lap of the race at the moment. I think he'll be ruining that mistake he made at the start and that first lap, because if things had been a little bit different, DJ, Broomhead would have been right up there with Hardman.
I have to think that is right. Reese is Broomhead trying to push ahead here. He's got a gap of about 6 seconds. Whoa, I think Horvath had a problem.
Yeah, looks like he did. I'm going to go back and check what happened there. It looks like he had a spin at Acqua Minerale, just got onto the grass on the outside and spun around. So Michael Broomhead's race is starting to come back to him here.
It certainly is. So we've got a little bit of a battle on our hands as we tick down just over a minute to go. Broomhead certainly in hot pursuit.
Indeed. Well, he's got the draft down the straight, and Horvath keeping the line nice and stable. Maybe a tiny bit of weaving down the straight, try and break the draft of Mr. Broomhead, but it seems that the gap is too great for Broomhead to try and make a move here into the Tamburello chicane, with Hardman just about making his way towards the final few turns of the circuit. It looks like next lap is going to be the final lap, so there's a couple more chances here for Broomhead to potentially get back up into 4th.
Indeed, I'm keeping an eye on.
Oh, no, just as I say it. Into the wall he goes, and that is big damage there for Broomhead. He's completely lost the front end. The rear suspension is completely out of whack, and I think that might be race over for our championship leader.
I think it might be indeed, but let's focus in on our race leader here as he crosses over the line to take the white flag. This is Andrew Hardman with a stellar start to get himself out front and avoiding all of the damage to get a 25-second gap back to Nicholas Colander. This is almost a victory lap, even though he's only just got one to go.
Yeah, indeed. All he has to do is keep it within the white lines on the grey stuff. Through Villeneuve he comes, and you see how little of the inside curbs he's using. He knows that he has that great big gap to play with. He doesn't need to take any more out of the car or the track than he needs to right now. And I got to give it to Andrew Hardman. He's done everything right this round, and this is going to be a really deserved victory.
For sure, a very, very good run for him. Absolutely stellar, calm, cool, and collected, as we like to say.
Yes, indeed. And I think that's going to be the key here in this season of Flying Husky Racing. Just minimizing mistakes, keeping a cool head. That's what's going to get you the results. Final time there for Ackerman Arali, and you see how very careful Andrew Hardman is being, but he's still extending that gap over Nicholas Colander. It's been an absolutely stellar drive from the number 11.
It truly has. There you see Michael Broomhead getting out of the way as he makes his way around those last two corners of Ravazza 1 and 2 to come back onto the main straight here. A controlled drive for Andrew Hardman. Just a little bit of kink in the road to go, and he takes the checkered flag to take victory at Imola.
Brilliant stuff there. Nicholas Colander, well, he's quite a ways behind as Hardman begins his victory celebrations. Into Ravazza, Colander has come, and he's going to bring that Britannia Racing machine out of the final corner to take second place after starting from fifth. He took advantage of all the mistakes that other drivers made here and going for a big old slide across the line to end it.
Yeah, and that's what he's going to do is now we follow back here. I believe this is Horvath as he comes across the final two corners to take a very well-deserved third place here to round out your podium.
Brilliant stuff in the number 382, and I mean he had his own issues throughout the race, but also took advantage of mistakes from others, and he'll be very happy with that result. A podium and a chance now to get himself a bit more into that championship hunt. Harland Goulbourne, meanwhile, into the gravel trap out of Ravazza. He didn't have the best of runs at the Red Bull Ring, but he's going to come home on track here in fourth place after starting in fourth and just hitting the wall on the inside to end things out. Lose the right rear, doesn't matter, already crossed the line.
And there it goes. That pretty much rounds out everything here for our coverage at Imola with the Flying Huskies. We're going to take a quick break and recap everything you have seen today, and then have some driver interviews for you. Welcome back to Imola. We have just seen a very, very topsy-turvy race from the Flying Husky Racers. And to run you through our finishing order here, Andrew Hardman with a commanding victory to take the top step of the podium, with Nicholas Colander and Nick Horvath behind him, and Harlem Goldborn rounding out your top four.
And they were the final drivers to finish on the lead lap. James Doherty and Michael Broomhead made mistakes and suffered big damage throughout that race. They had to be classified a lap down, along with Todd Curtis and Hans Salnave 3 laps down after some big issues at the start of the race, including contact with Michael Broomhead coming out of Villeneuve. But those are all of our drivers there tonight. It's time, DJ, to have a talk to our top three.
And we're going to start that off with our winner here tonight, Andrew Hardman, who is in the booth with us. Andrew, that's a pretty commanding win here at a pretty tough circuit.
Yeah, it was pretty easy, but still had to keep it on four wheels. I feel bad that both Mike and Nick had some issues to begin with, because I was looking forward to a really good race with them. So yeah, it was good to get the win, but I would have preferred to have had a good race and maybe come on lower on the podium.
Well, that's a fair assessment, but I mean, how do you like some of these old school tracks like this, like Imola, obviously overtaking a little bit more difficult, and I guess, to be cliche, what they would call more of a driver's circuit nowadays?
Right. I quite like Imola. I've always been a fan of watching it in Formula One and then driving it in iRacing. So I quite like the old school circuits. Although my hands are quite sore after practicing and racing tonight.
Well, that's you go ahead, man.
Just the curbs were quite harsh, and you have to use them to go quick here. So no choice but to have sore hands after.
Very, very fair. Well, we head to another old school track next week with a lot of elevation changes. Brands Hatch, how do you think that's going to go?
Brands is a new track for me. I've only done a few sort of practice sessions on there, so it'll be interesting. I know it's going to be fast paced and not any sort of time to relax there, so should be very interesting.
Well, fantastic. Andrew, anybody you'd like to thank for this win here tonight?
Well, the whole Britannia team has really been a positive space for all of us racers. Really fun to come on here and just chat with the buddies and do some good racing. So yeah, all thanks goes to them.
Fantastic. That was your winner, Andrew Hardman. And now, Reese, I believe you've caught up with our second place finisher, Nicholas Colander.
I have indeed. Mr. Colander in the booth with us. Welcome, Nick, and congratulations on your second place. And looked like that was a race defined by error minimization.
That is the name of the game, guys. It's always a pleasure. So it was a great race. I knew from the good start I had that, there was some good potential there, and then kind of fell into my hands. And then my buddy Nick Horvath hit that sausage curb and spun out, had a little Days of Thunder moment. But that was a blast. That was a great race.
Indeed, certainly looked like it from our end as well. How do you find Imola? Because the curbs here on the insides of the corners, they can really play havoc with these Formula 3 cars.
One thing I'm learning in my racecraft is that there's a rhythm to racing. There's a rhythm to every track. There's a flow to every track. And this one is one that punishes you if you don't get it down, because it's cumulative. It stacks up on the next lap. You know how your lap's going to be if you come through the chicane right. And the second one, it keeps stacking. I actually love this track, the undulations, the curves. I like Italian tracks. This is my thing. I think next to Watkins Glen, this might be my favorite track, actually.
Yeah, certainly fair assessment there. And you had an almost battle eventuate between yourself and James Doyle at the midpoint of the race before James spun. What were you thinking in that moment? Thinking, oh my goodness, maybe he's gaining on me. Maybe I could lose second place. Were you looking forward to that? And how did you feel when you saw in his mirrors that he spun out behind you?
So some history, me and James both used to race RC cars. I moved out west. I'm from Jersey, but I used to live in Boston. That's why I met James. And it's a pleasure racing with him. it's a joy just to battle with him. So when he came up on me, I wasn't really nervous because we practiced a lot together. I was actually excited because we were going to battle. When I messed up, I was definitely nervous. I think I hit a sausage curve just like Nick did earlier. Didn't spin, saved it. He pulled up on me, and then he had an error. And I kind of got scot-free. Harlan actually had me nervous at the end. He was getting really aggressive. I was wondering if he was going to pull up on me, but it's always a pleasure racing with James. Spending time with buddies and having fun. That's what it's all about, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you guys get to do it all again next week at Brands Hatch, which is another completely different circuit to Red Bull Ring and Imola. It's a very varied opening few rounds to the season.
Yeah, it should be a blast. I look forward to this all week, hanging out with the buddies. I want to shout out to my amazing wife for, really helping me and supporting my passion. To the homies, Mike Broomhead, to Todd, Nick Horvath, everybody. Hans is progressing really well. This league's a blast. Seattle Private Reserve, shout out to them as well. And then lastly, GSRC, you guys put on a great broadcast, so you guys are very much appreciated.
Thank you very much, Nicholas Colland. That is your second place man out of the booth now. And it seems that now you've got to have a chat with Mr. Horvath, DJ.
I do indeed, Nick. A relatively quiet race a little bit there from you, but how did you like coming around Imola?
Honestly, this is probably one of my least favorite tracks, just for the sheer fact of it infuriates me almost constantly. But I felt like once I kind of got by myself, I got a rhythm down, and it was going all right. It's just a couple of those little nitpicky errors, just because I was trying to push to catch fifth and fourth.
Well, definitely making that push. So as you got into the race, was it a little bit more of a situation of trying to make that push to go forward, or are you just trying to hang on a little bit for dear life?
Well, after I got plowed into on the first lap, I didn't really see that coming. I thought I could recover well enough, but once that happened, I just sort of realized that at that point, it's just start hitting faster laps. I knew I had the pace that I could probably catch about halfway through the race, which was starting to happen. It just didn't really pan out the way I expected it to. Of course, I didn't really expect to come away with a podium at the end either.
Well, there you go, and you did, and I'd say that's a good thing. Well, we move from the high curbs of Imola to the sweeping elevation change of Brands Hatch. How do you think that's going to go next week?
I'm really looking forward to it. Brands Hatch is one of my favorite tracks on the sim. It's one of the tracks I'm better at, so I feel like it's going to be a great time.
Well, I know we're looking forward to it. Nick, anybody you'd like to thank for this third place?
Truthfully, I don't even have anyone I can thank. I wasn't even expecting it. Didn't really expect to get this far.
That may be one of the better answers I've heard out of that. Nick, I love it. Congratulations, man.
Thank you.
All right, and finally here in the booth, we have Reese catching up with series organizer and 7th place finisher here tonight, Todd Curtis.
G'day, Todd. Welcome to the booth once again. And wow, that was quite the eventful race for many drivers in the field, let alone you. Turned out that was a pretty chaotic start with that contact with Michael Broomhead.
It started out looking okay, and then a few minor incidents along the way. Mike and I think you could have called that one either way. Later on, a little clash with Nick. I think he held his line, but at the end of the night, you can't blame anybody else. I just wasn't driving very cleanly. I kind of lost focus a few times, and it showed. But it's a great group. I enjoyed watching these other guys really tear it up, and Andrew and Nick and Mike and everybody drove really well overall. And I get to learn something from these guys every time I'm out, so I can't complain too much.
No, certainly. It seems like, this league is starting to get quite the championship battle with that, with the poor results for James Doherty and Michael Broomhead. Andrew Hardman there taking maximum points, and Collender and Horvath starting to get some good points hauls as well. This could be a very competitive season.
Yeah, it's starting to get pretty exciting. Unfortunately, it's looking a little further distant from where I am, but it's still a lot of fun, and we have a great group here, and we're continuing to grow and have a lot of fun here together. So that's what it's about. And just congratulations to the guys who took it tonight.
Indeed, they get our congratulations as well. But final question, moving along to next round at Brands Hatch, what was your thought process when putting together the schedule for this league? Because we're going to some of the most iconic circuits around the world, and Brands Hatch certainly no different to the likes of Imola and the Red Bull Ring.
Yeah, well, we took input from the guys to say, where do you want to race? We looked at some of the events that we have going on around us. We just finished up Formula One at the Red Bull Ring. That influenced our first race of the season. We have an event happening here on track that's sort of Italian themed. So we went with the Imola choice this week. And some of those future races, we thought about where would we be traveling around the world. We've been in Europe a while. So we'll hang out in Britain. We'll do Brands Hatch. We'll do Donington. So that's sort of the rationale, and maybe it's a little goofy, but it works for us.
Indeed, certainly works for us too up here in the booth at GSRC. Thanks for joining us once again, Todd. Is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to before we let you go?
Thanks everybody for coming out. Norsled, of course, norsled.org, and to you guys at GSRC for continuing to put on a great production and making us look good out there. Thanks a lot.
That's Todd Curtis there, series organizer, and finishing 7th today here at the Autodromo Enzo e Dino Ferrari. Well, DJ, I think I really enjoyed that race, certainly mixing things up.
As did I, but as with all good things, it's got to come to an end. And before we go, we do want to thank the sponsors for tonight's event, which include Norsled, Save a Husky. For more information, contact Todd Curtis through email at todd@flyinghusky.racing, as well as Flying Husky Racing. Find out more on the web at flyinghusky.racing. Flying Husky Racing, track days are the best days. Thanks also to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. Additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, and Reese, Zach, and Dougie. You can find out more about GSRC at globalsimracingchannel.com or through any of the social media listed there on your screen. Also, please head on over to the merchandise store at simracingmerch.com/GSRC. We keep a link in the description below. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well so you don't miss a moment here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Well, you heard us mention it a couple of times today. Our next race is going to be the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. That's going to be at 11:30 p.m. Eastern time on July 20th. We also have upcoming races listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.